So one of the things I've told you guys on this show since it began is that it matters how you resist politicians on the right. And it matters how you resist corporate Democrats. The logical extension of the arguments you make matter. They matter. So it's not enough to be like idiots like Sean Hannity and just fling mud and hope something sticks. That kind of like, I have no principles, I have no real beliefs, I'm just a partisan hack stuff, I'm so averse to it, and I despise it with every fiber of my being. Well, in step Erin Burnett of CNN, and she's going to put on a clinic here in exactly how not to resist Donald Trump because of, and I want you to pay close attention to this, because of the logical implications of the way in which she's trying to burn him and play Gaia.
Trump blames Iran for the attack on oil supply that caused oil prices to spike 20%. And he says he's prepared for military action. This, as a source tells CNN, United States intelligence believes the attack originated inside Iran.
Mr. President, have you seen evidence, proof that Iran was behind the attack?
Well, it's looking that way.
Trump's words coming after he tweeted in part, quote, "The U.S. is locked and loaded." Locked and loaded is, of course, a big threat. And a senior Revolutionary Guard commander from Iran said overnight that the country is, quote, ready for full-fledged war. Of course, the problem with hot rhetoric is that it can go wrong fast. But playing fast and loose with facts and words, of course, is not new for Trump. He actually threatened Iran with much worse in July 2018 when he tweeted to Iranian President Rouhani, "Never ever threaten the United States again, or you will suffer consequences, the likes of which few throughout history have ever suffered before." Well, there were no consequences, certainly not the likes of which few in history have ever before suffered. But Trump does love to issue threats and then do nothing. Take, for example, North Korea. Remember this?
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
Fire and fury. Well, there has been plenty of fire. But from North Korea, it has fired nearly 24 rockets since that day, the last one said to be a super large multiple rocket launcher. As for Trump, fire and fury turned into this.
I was really being tough, and so was he. And we would go back and forth, and then we fell in love, okay? No, really. He wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters. We fell in love.
So if fire and fury turned into that, then why should Iran take locked and loaded and Armageddon-like threats of making world history seriously?
So how would Trump go about, let's say Trump watches this segment. How would he go about proving Erin Burnett wrong? The entire way that she's prodding him there is, Mr. President, you say all these tough things, but then you don't follow up on it. You don't follow through. So you should. What are you doing? You can't say you're locked and loaded and then do nothing. You can't say you're going to rain down fire and fury and then do nothing. So you're all talk and no action. So the way that he's going to interpret that is, I need to be more about the action. I need to actually follow through on some of this stuff. That's how he's going to interpret that. That's the way in which you're prodding him. Now, am I saying, oh, you can't criticize Trump on, this issue of foreign policy? Of course not. But the way that you go after him is, you put up the locked and loaded tweet, you show the fire and fury comment, and you say, this is insane. He's a thin-skinned lunatic, and doesn't have the temperament or the cognitive ability or the policy chops to be in this position. He's not a thoughtful person. So stop throwing around threats to other world leaders. Full stop. So you want to go after Trump? That's how you go after Trump. To say, oh, you talked tough, but then you didn't follow through, the implication being, man, you really need to follow through. That's like terrifying, because it's the exact sort of thing that I've warned about on this show for such a long time, which is resisting from the right. And you saw this again with when John Bolton was let go. The argument wasn't, oh my God, thank God we dodged a bullet. But now, Mr. President, you need to commit to a non-interventionist position and de-escalate with all the countries that we're about to go to war with. No, the response from many in the media and many corporate Democrats was, oh, the administration is in disarray. And even on CNN, again, I saw headlines, I think it was Anderson Cooper, highest turnover in modern American history when it comes to his administration. People keep leaving the administration. Yes. So the criticism is, so many people are leaving your administration. Look at this chaos. Look at this disarray. You should really make sure everything is orderly and you don't have high turnover. But that would mean you're saying keep John Bolton, keep the mega hawks. And obviously he has a terrible impact on the direction of our foreign policy. So why would you try to prod him to be like, don't fire these people? No, fire those people. The problem is that he ever hired John Bolton in the first place. That should be your criticism. Your criticism should be, oh my goodness, this guy belongs in The Hague. This guy's a war criminal. This guy was one of the main players that got us into Iraq. What are we doing here? Why would you hire him? On the campaign trail, you were acting like you're non-interventionist at least half the time. So what are you doing? You're going to hire somebody who represents the exact opposite philosophy? Why? Why would you do that? That's the criticism. The criticism is not, no, you should have kept him because then you wouldn't be in disarray. High turnover is bad. See, this is why people despise mainstream media. Trust in mainstream media is at an all-time low. Why? Because they don't believe anything. In order to make substantive criticisms, you have to come from an ideological perspective. The difference between us and them is I actually admit what my beliefs are up front. They play hide the ball, and they act like they're being totally objective and totally neutral. No, you're not. You have a bias, and it's actually a lazy establishment bias. So this kind of stuff where you're just trying to burn Trump, like, I got him. You said really tough stuff, but then you didn't follow through. Aha! No, the criticism should just be, stop saying the really tough stuff because it's insane. That's the criticism. Not, why didn't you follow through on Locked and Loaded? Maybe you should follow through on that. Maybe you should follow through on Fire and Fury. People aren't taking us seriously because you're yapping your trap and you're not following through. No, the real criticism is stop yapping your trap. Stop it. Don't do that. That's terrible. That's stupid. That's dumb. I'm happy you didn't follow through. I'm happy. Listen, I'm happy Trump ended up being a hypocrite because once he said the terrible shit he said, that was best case scenario, is don't do shit. Stop. Right now, by the way, just so everybody knows, with what's happening in Saudi Arabia with the oil fields that were bombed, Trump announced on Twitter that, we're tightening sanctions even further on Iran. I've never in my life been happier to see an announcement of sanctions. Why? Because that is like the least military-oriented response that he could have come up with, and he took that avenue. So I was like, oh, thank God. Because I really thought, oh my God, this is it. We're going to go to war with Iran. This is it right now. It's going to happen. Because Trump tweeted that, initially after it happened, waiting for verification on who did it, we're locked and loaded. And speaking to Saudi Arabia, made it seem like Saudi Arabia is his boss. So I was like, oh, here we go. But no, thankfully, he was like, we're going to do sanctions. Now, the sanctions are terrible in their own right, in their own respect, but that's the least of all the bad options that I thought were humanly possible at this point in time. So, but Jesus, man, I can't. This stuff it's aging me at double the rate. So, and that's what drives me crazy, is that people are getting this misimpression. If they're not familiar with new media, and they're not familiar with maybe some of the good print outlets, that's the impression that they're getting, that these are your options. Your options are Trump or the people who believe in absolutely nothing in terms of policy and are just trying to hypocrisy burn him and argue against his position from an unprincipled standpoint. So those are your options. The lazy establishment bias hacks or the extreme right-wing insane people. Those are your options. And it's like, oh my God, there are other options out there, okay? There is an actual left-wing perspective and a left-wing critique. So, sweet Jesus, I mean, this stuff drives me crazy.